Happy Monday, everybody. How are you? Let's see who we have in the chat. Nobody's commenting yet, but I do see 3 people are watching. So, good morning to the 3 people that are watching. I hope your Monday morning is going fan-friggin-tastic. Let's see. What am I doing? Oh, I gotta share the screen. La 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 la. So, when we left off last week, the guy from BCI was testifying, and I believe that he testified all day. I'm trying to see what's going on right now. Give me just a second. Okay, so let's just see what's going on. Anyway, hi, good morning, Kez Chick. Good morning, True Psych Ward. Good morning, Corky. Hi, hi, hi. Whew. What already? So I think that the consensus over at the live is that, or over at the courthouse is that more BCI testimony today, and then maybe people opting out. But I feel like um, what's going to end up I feel like the way the state is proceeding now is they got a lot of the what would be like character witnesses, you know what I mean? Like people who were witnesses, they showed up, obviously. They're the ones that called 911, and but also they knew the family, the Roden family, and so I feel like the state tried to get those out of the way just so that because they're the ones that, and then I don't blame them. I would have opted out too. But anyway, that just so that they can move on now. And I think what's gonna take place next. Usually this is what happens, but just as soon as I say it, it'll change. Usually the state um, then starts bringing in all the forensics, and they do all that. So it'll like the medical examiner and more crime scene techs and stuff like that. Plus, remember, we still okay. So they did show the shoe prints in blood Friday, but they haven't really talked about the actual. That's as far as they got. They haven't said, okay, well then we did this, that, and the third to figure out what kind of shoes they were, what size they were, et cetera, because I think that's going to be a separate witness, if I'm remembering correctly from the opening statements. And I'm kind of curious if they're going to put on the gentleman that they described. I know they gave the name, but y'all, I have not had a 5-hour energy. I'm out of them. So I am a little bit this morning because I've only had coffee. And yeah, so it's going to be one of those days. So brace yourselves. Anyway, so I can't remember the specialist name, but basically he's known, really renowned at analyzing shoe prints. And so I'm curious. I don't know if they're going to put him on and the crime scene tech that went around to the various like different stores looking for shoes and then that match that print, those shoe prints. I don't know if they're going to put um, them both on the stand or one. I'm not sure. I would be very interested to hear the both, honestly, because I'd like to hear how, you know, how, where all she went, because that the story isn't. It's not that she just all of a sudden showed up at Walmart and bingo bango found the match, right? Obviously, that would be way too easy. So I feel like if I'm curious to how many different stores she went to, because I feel like she would have gone to like Walmart, obviously, Target. I'm trying to think of what other, maybe Dollar Tree, maybe Dollar General. I know that they have for sure. I know Dollar General and Dollar Tree have flip flops, but I can't remember if I've ever like seen shoes. And I don't even know if Payless was a thing anymore in 2016. Can you imagine if it was though, and how many shoes that you would have to look at? I mean, obviously you can rule out women, like heels, sandals, flip flops, that kind of stuff, right? You just have to narrow it down to tennis shoes. But even in a store like Payless, they got a ton of different tennis shoes too. So that would be tedious. All right, Kez Chick, how's Charlie the birdie doing? Behaving today? So we're just kind of waiting now for court to start. It's just before 9 o'clock here. It's like 8:59. So we'll see. I'm sure it'll be any moment. I guess I could add it to stream and see what's going on. Let me go over to Law and Crime. While we're all waiting, if you guys wouldn't mind giving Yagir a thumbs up on the stream, I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. Very, very much. Oh, she's in bed. Night, night, Charlie. Let's see. And while we're waiting, also, oh, you know what? I forgot about. I want to tell you the the hearing for Adnan Syed is today, and I'm curious if it's going to be streamed. I need, yeah, because if it is, of course, we're going to watch that because whether I mean I might not interrupt testimony for that. Obviously, that would be rude, but I would. I do want to. I do want to see how that goes today if they end up covering it. I don't see anything over on. I don't. It's not even. Well, they just barely got there, so it's not going to be anything yet. I don't even think court's even started yet. Hi, Amelia. Good to see you, babe. All right. So, besides the giving me, I'm going to drop the link for memberships. Oh, for Pete's sake. Stop fixing it, autocorrect. I wrote what I wrote. I know how to type. All right, there's that. And then I'm going to put in my PayPal and Cash App if you want to keep your girls stocked up in the 5 hours. I would appreciate it. If you want to give me a tip, that'd be great. I usually don't talk about money, and that's the only time you're going to hear me talk about it because it feels odd and awkward. So there we go. I've done my duty as far as that goes. Let me make sure that the link is working because I remember before PayPal wasn't working before. So let me just make sure. Yup. Looks like it's working. Cool. All right, there we go. So now that's all done and over with. And please, if you don't mind, consider a membership. I'm going to start doing more stuff, members only lives and stuff like that, because I want to thank you guys. And I know I've talked about it, but so far, I've just kind of been like, blah, but now I I'm back. I'm more peppy. Also, let's be honest, summertime is kind of hard because like the weather is nice and you want to be outside and you want to do things and you don't really want to, but it's even though like Florida doesn't have hateful wintertime weather, obviously. Um, it's windier here and, it's chillier and whatnot. So, um, it's easier to stay inside and sit in my at my desk and do my work like I'm supposed to be doing. So yeah, I'm gonna start doing members only lives where Dr. B and I'm happy to announce the band is back together and we're doing roasts again. We will be doing Melanie Gibbs' phone call to Lori Vallow this week on Friday. The one where she's like, "That's not what friends do, Lori." And Lori's all, "Just know that just love you and it'll all make sense in the end. Of course they're safe." Yeah, that phone call, that's what we'll be doing. So you're not going to want to miss that. If you missed it on Saturday, I did a live with the one and only Benny Keys. We talked all the things West Memphis 3, and it is a long live, but the thing about it is there's no like lulls in the conversation. There's no where we just ran out of things to talk about, which I always like. And there's a little bit of I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, Benny does talk a little bit about his experience with the Wells, Dawn and Candace at the end. Um, as far as that went, from the Summer Wells case, he talked about the Summer Wells case a little bit, and he was fan. He was really fun to have on. Oh, there's
Please be seated.
movement in the court. Here we go. Oh,
Good morning.
the cameraman from Law and Crime is giving us a little Blair Witch.
This is an action entitled State of Ohio Plaintiff versus George Washington Wagner, the fourth defendant, case number 2018 CR 155. And it comes on for another day of jury trial today. Today is the 19th day of September 2022. The defendant is present in court today with his attorneys, John Parker and Richard Nash. And the state of Ohio is represented by the prosecuting attorney, Rob Junk, and by special prosecuting attorneys, Angela Canepa and Andrew Wilson. Also present is Ryan Scheiderer with Ohio BCI and I. One matter the court wanted to mention, juror A116, who is seated in seat 10, has expressed a little bit of difficulty with her back, and so has asked to be placed in another type seat. So we have made an accommodation by adding one of the softer seats down here. I assume that doesn't bother any of the counsel.
Objection. We certainly have no objection on that, Your Honor.
We, and hopefully everybody else is all right with that. So we'll just leave the one seat that she had occupied unoccupied and put her in an extra seat that we've added to the area where the alternates are. She remains a regular juror, though, of course. As soon as we get the jury in here, then we would have the witness that the state had on the stand was still direct examination of Shane Hanshaw, and we'll have him occupy the seat after we get the jury in here. Was there anything further that either counsel for either side wishes to put on the record before we bring the jury in?
No.
And my intention is just to remind Officer Henshaw of the oath that we administered on Friday. We can bring them up then.
This is day 6 of the George Wagner, the fourth trial. However, this is day 50-1100 that George has worn, or that the leather vest has made its appearance in court. Just so you know, he just seems to be changing shirts. Also, and this is just an aside because this is the type of thing that I notice. George has lost some weight, a considerable amount of weight, to be honest with you. And but yet thing is his vest is bunched. And I'm almost wondering if he's wearing a vest underneath, a bulletproof vest. I don't know. Usually they put that on top, but he just looks like he's got something underneath there that's bulky and making it push out. Just curious. These are just things your girl notices while we're waiting for the jury to come. So, I mean, and I told you, I remember on Friday when this officer was testifying, like we got to the lunch hour and he was still testifying about crime scene 1. So A, which would have been Chris Roden Sr.'s home where Chris Roden Sr. and Gary Roden were found. I would imagine that they probably only got to maybe partially through crime scene B. A shock. What does that mean, Jer?
You may all be seated.
A shock vest. I don't know what that is.
Good morning.
Like,
ladies and
if he
gentlemen
gets
of
out
the
of
jury.
hand,
Good
they
to
can
see you all
shock him?
here today.
Like a
When
shock
we,
collar like that?
recessed on Friday afternoon, you'll recall that
I've never heard of a shock vest
Agent
before.
Shane Henshaw was in the witness chair and was being examined by the state's attorneys. And so that's where we'll pick up this morning. So, Jason, if you could have Agent Henshaw enter and occupy the witness chair.
Also, welcome to the stream, Jer. Manley. I like how the judge gives the jury a little recap. Like, we know
Good morning.
you've been gone over the weekend, you've
Agent
done some
Henshaw, I would
stuff.
just remind you that we administered an oath on
Here's the
Friday
overview.
morning. That oath
Nice
that was
recap.
administered at that time is still in
I
effect
appreciate
today.
that, Your Honor.
Yes, sir. If you'll have a seat there. Thank you.
Yeah, you still got to tell the truth, bruh.
Is
Here
the
we
state
go.
ready to proceed this
Yes,
morning?
Your Honor, thank you.
Is the defense ready?
Yes.
All right. The
We're
state
all
may
ready. Let's
continue
hit it.
direct examination of Agent Henshaw.
Just like I thought. Perfect. I love it. So the vest that he's wearing is not an outfit of the day choice. Is that what you're saying? That it's
Agent Henshaw, I have put back up for you
Interesting.
and for the jury what's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit A547. Again, do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And just so we're making the record clear, can you tell us what that is?
I feel like my husband would want one of those for me.
A sketch that was prepared by the Bureau of Criminal Investigation of the residence.
'Cause I'm
located at
always out of
47
hand.
Union Hill Road.
I'm going to hand you another stack of pictures. Can you look at those pictures for us? Just generally. Do you recognize those pictures?
Yes, sir, I do.
And do you recognize those pictures as pictures that you took in this case and that you reviewed in preparation for your testimony in this case?
Yes, I do.
All right, last Friday, when you were on the stand, do you remember you testified about the ballistic evidence that you found at 4077 Union Hill Road? Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
And do you also remember testifying about the blood evidence that you observed and took some swabs from there at 4077 Union Hill Road?
Yes, sir, I do.
In addition to that, do you remember talking or testifying about shoe print evidence that you observed and collected there at 4077 Union Hill Road?
Yes, I do.
In addition to ballistic evidence, in addition to blood evidence, in addition to shoe print evidence, was there other evidence in that living room and kitchen area that you collected there at 4077 Union Hill Road as part of your work in this case?
Yes, there was.
Mr. Jones, can you give me State's Exhibit A167? I'm putting A167 up. That's not one of the pictures that you have in front of you. Again, this is a picture that we've used with the jury on several occasions. Can you just go ahead and orient the jury what we're looking at there and what part of the house they're in?
May I stand, Your Honor?
Yes.
Me either, Amelia Sparkles, but
Once again,
I'm very
this
intrigued
is
by
one
it.
of the
Not
photographs
gonna-
we viewed earlier
I'm
on.
not going to front.
As I previously testified that before entering the residence, I did look inside, took some photographs from there. If you look here in the corner, you'll see the actual door jamb that putting me outside on the front porch, looking into the residence from the porch.
And last week you testified that there was a speaker or a large speaker in that room. Can you point to the jury or point to that speaker and show the jury where that speaker is?
Yes, the large speaker's right behind the chair.
In addition to the ballistic evidence you found in and around that speaker, was there evidence you've collected from a box on top of that speaker?
Yes, there was.
Can you give me State's Exhibit A399, please? State's Exhibit A399.
I mean, that
Can you tell the
totally
jury
makes
what
sense,
they're looking
Jer.
at there?
I hope I'm saying your name right.
Yes, this is a closer view of the area that would contain a large speaker and also a small speaker.
Did you collect evidence from the box that's pictured in that exhibit?
Yes, I did.
And
If
most
you
of
want,
the
you go ahead and
time,
sit back down and work off your pictures.
you know, the court will rule in favor of the
Can you give me
defendant
State's Exhibit
during trial
A401,
not be shackled
please?
because it gives off an impression to the jury. And so
Can you tell the
this
jury
makes, this is
what's
a good
depicted
compromise.
in this exhibit?
Yes,
No, I don't think they
Exhibit
did. True
A401.
psych ward.
If you recall, again, just to orient where we are, we just discussed the large speaker. This was sitting on top of a large speaker in a box, and it was a notebook. Within the notebook, there appeared to be multiple names and phone numbers, and I felt that it could somehow be relevant or it could come into play later.
Okay. Did you mark that item with a unique BCI item number and a photo placard and document it?
Yes, I marked it as item number 39. Once again, it's documented with a placard, and it was collected and packaged.
I'm gonna hand you what's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit A524. You might want to put those on because you're going to need those. You don't need them for this exhibit. You're going to need them here in a second. State's Exhibit A524. Do you recognize the markings on that packaging?
Yes, I do.
Can you tell the jury what they're looking at?
Exhibit A524 is my item number 39, which you can see in the last photograph, 401. And it appears to be the notebook that was collected with the names. It's packaged in my packaging. It has my original label and again, my initials on the back.
Okay. And can you do me a favor?
Oh,
That packaging's already
Amelia.
been open for you. Can you
Bless your
pull the
heart,
item
babe.
out,
Sending good thoughts, good juju, calm juju
display it to the jury,
To
and tell us what
you.
we're looking at?
this morning.
This is item number 39 that was seen in the photograph.
I remember those days. I remember when my youngest just twisted off in the morning, like out of nowhere. And I was like, whoa,
All right, I've
before
opened
school.
up
And I used to
that
work to
exhibit, that
prevent
notebook,
an argument,
the page that I
you know,
opened
because
up
it just
to,
sets the tone for
again,
the
do
day
you
to be. But she
recognize
was just,
the information on that page
that
is the
day.
information that it was open to on the day that you collected it.
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay, and can you tell us the last dates associated with the names in that document?
Just the date.
The date and the name, that's fine.
The name is Billy and the date is 4/21/2016.
Did you collect this item, maintain it,
Aw.
and store it in accordance with your standard
Amelia.
operating procedures?
Yes, I did.
And ultimately, would that have been stored at BCI or
This is
a
the
secure
best
copy
advice.
room until
She's-
trial?
True
Yes,
Side
sir.
Ford's right. Dr. B is right. Don't react. I have made that mistake reacting, and it's exactly what
In addition
the
to that
child wanted.
notebook,
they wanted,
in
an
that,
argument, and I gave it
living
to
room
them,
area, did you also find
and that's what they
a
wanted.
broken pair of eyeglasses and the lenses to that eyeglass?
Yes, I did.
Talk us through that. Where did you find those things? And if you can, point to the diagram there.
I don't
show the jury
understand
where
why
you
they're not
found
showing
those
stuff.
items
I
and
mean,
what you
surely
did
we
with the
should be able to see this
It's
evidence.
actually
There's
listed
nothing.
on the diagram as item number 31 and item number 32. 31 being here in the almost center of the living room. There was blood evidence, if you recall, testified to last week, 20 and 21. 20 was in that area as well. And 32 was another piece of those glasses being over at the entrance of the kitchen area.
I'm gonna ask the press not to display the next couple of pictures. Mr. Junkin, if you could give me State's Exhibit A 358, please.
You're welcome, babe. It will get better. I promise you, it will get better.
Can you tell the jury, I put up on the screen State's Exhibit A 358. Can you tell the jury what they're looking at there and what is depicted in that picture?
And I gotta say, Dr. B is right
I
about
stand.
this.
Yes,
She's
please.
good. Very good.
This is what I just basically explained. Here you would have a lens, item number 31. Here you would have item number 32 being the glasses without a lens. And
I
here,
only have experience
I
being
think
the
we've
defiant
discussed
kid.
what would be a blood pattern there. Appears to be a drag mark, and there's a large accumulation of blood in that
I
area.
see why they're not
Mr.
showing.
Junkin, can you give me the next picture? Again, with respect to your item number 31, did you document that, give it a unique BCI item number, and eventually collect that?
Yes, sir, I did.
And I put on the screen what's been marked for identification purposes, State's Exhibit A 359. Can you tell the jury what they're looking at there in State's Exhibit A 359?
In A 359, obviously it's just a close-up photograph of the lens in its original location prior to any alterations or being moved.
I'm going to give you what's been marked for identification purposes, State's Exhibit A 516.
I have this.
State's Exhibit A 516. Do you recognize the markings on that package?
Yes, the markings, first of all, this is my original packaging. It appears it has my original label, my item number 31. My description, that it is an eyeglass lens from basically the center of the living room area, and it does have my initials.
Could you go ahead and open that for us, please?
Oh, wow. Oh, no, Amelia.
Okay. Can you tell the jury what that is?
Yes, it's a eyeglass lens represented
I'm
in the
sorry,
photograph as item
babe.
number 31.
Wonder what.
Your Honor, at this time I'd ask for the witness to be allowed to publish that item for the jury.
Any objections?
No objection.
You know, I
Raise your hands up.
kind
Could you do me a favor? Just come off the stand and just
Excuse
walk in
me.
front of the jury with that so they can see the condition of that item.
I kind of remember that happening with my kiddos too, that they seemed like they were cool, almost too cool the first week. And then the second week, it was a little different. It was a little harder. Oh, it's a lot of changes for a little one, you know? 5 is still young.
And if you could, go ahead and put it back in its packaging for us.
Do you suppose the officer right there, the bailiff that's seated, do you suppose he's the one that
State
has
Exhibit
the
516.
clicker to the shock
Again,
vest?
the way that you just displayed it to the jury, is that the way it appeared the day that you found it and collected it?
Yes, it is.
And did you collect, maintain, and store this in
Oh,
accordance
bless your heart,
with your
Amelia.
standard operating procedures?
Yes, sir, I did.
And would have been stored in a secure manner until it was brought to court?
Absolutely, yes.
Mr. John, can I get State Exhibit A360, which I believe is the next picture?
I know it is a long day for a 5-year-old, and then
All right.
You know, it's
State
just-
Exhibit
it's a lot.
A360.
it'll
which I
pass
have
though,
up on the
babe. It
screen
really
there.
will.
Can you tell the jury
They
what
get
they're
used
looking
to
at
it,
there?
and
Yes, A360 is a photograph, kind of an overhead photograph of the glasses, the actual frames, with the exception there appears to be one of the arms is missing and a lens appears to be missing. It's located right at the threshold, leaving the living room area as you would be entering into the kitchen.
Okay, and again, does that exhibit that's up on the screen, does that truly and accurately depict the way you observed that item on the day that you collected it?
Yes.
all right, I'll be right
Did you
back.
give it
But I'll
its
be
own
in
unique
chat.
BCI item number and photo placard?
Yes, I gave it BCI item number, my item number of 32. It was photographed, it had been photographed multiple times and eventually collected and packaged.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit A517. Do you recognize the markings on that package?
Yes, I do.
Can you tell the jury what you recognize or how you recognize that package?
Yes, A517, this is my packaging. Has my initials on the back, half on, half off the tape. Also, it has my original evidence label, evidence number 32. There is a sticker covering it, but it appears to be that I labeled it as eyeglasses and the rest is covered. It, once again, is my original packaging with my initials.
Could you do me a favor? Could you open that packaging for us? Do you recognize the items in that packaging?
Yes, I do.
Can you tell the jury what that is?
Yes, this is my item number 32 that we've seen in the photograph.
Okay. All right, this time I'd ask permission for the witness to publish this exhibit to the jury.
Okay.
This time, could you come down off the witness stand and show the jury State's Exhibit 517? Now, at the time you collected that item, was the lens still in it?
It was at that particular time, I believe.
Okay. Does it appear that since the lens in the packaging has popped out?
Yes.
Could you put that item back in its package, please?
Yes.
I hold on. Use what she loves.
Yes, it had blood on it.
State Exhibit A517. Again, did you collect this item in accordance with your standard operating procedures?
Yes, sir, I did.
And would it have been collected, maintained, and stored in a way that would have been secure until it was brought here to the courthouse for trial?
Yes.
You're going to need to put on another pair of gloves for me. Mr. Junk, can you give us State's Exhibit A363? In addition to those eyeglasses, did you also collect a ball cap from the kitchen area of 4077 Union Hill Road?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell the jury on the diagram, the big board there, where was this ball cap that you collected?
Ball cap is in this area. I think it's there.
And we put up on the screen what's been marked for identification purposes. It states Exhibit A363. Can you tell the jury what they're looking at there in States Exhibit A363?
Yes, I think I stated Friday as well that the majority of the photographs that we'd seen at that point were photographs looking from the angle of the front door. This is a photograph now that I'm to the point of the investigation. I'm moving back toward the bedroom, and now I'm in the kitchen looking back, facing back toward the living room area. And you can see the item number 34 in the photograph, which is the Jets ball cap.
Did you give this item, again, a unique BCI item number, photo placard number, and then photograph it from far to near?
Yes, I did.
Can you give me States Exhibit A362? Can you tell the jury what they're looking at there?
Yes, once again, this is the same Jets baseball hat. It's just from a little different angle and a little closer.
Now, as you examined that item and got a closer look at it, did you notice damage to that particular ball cap?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Can you describe to the jury what you saw?
It looked like it had perforations, or it looked like that the fabric in it had been altered in some way, or torn, I guess you could say.
Can you give me States Exhibit A368? States Exhibit A368. Can you tell us what we're looking at there?
Yes, A368. Once again, it's the same hat, but based on this angle, you can begin to realize why we take so many photographs and from so many angles. You can see what appears to be damage to the bill of the cap. It appears to be somewhat torn loose from the rest of the cap as well.
Can you give me A369, just the next picture? Again, can you tell the jury what they're looking at there in States Exhibit A369?
Yes, A369 is the Jets hat. It's my item number 34, located in the kitchen area. And now you can see some very distinct damage to the bill where it connects to the hat as well as the bill itself.
Did you ultimately collect that item for evidentiary purposes in this case?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification purposes as States Exhibit A519. Can you take a look at States Exhibit A519 for us?
Yes,
Do you recognize the markings on that packaging?
yes. Exhibit A519. To begin with, it is my packaging. It has my initials. It has my original evidence label, consistent with item number 34. And I have it documented as a New York Jets hat from the kitchen floor.
Do you also see other markings on that packaging that indicate that it went to the lab or other lab labels?
Yes, I did.
Can you go ahead and open that item for us? And when you remove what's inside that item, just be careful for me with respect to bring it out kind of slowly. I don't want you to drop anything. Agent Hanshaw, when you bring it out, bring it so the open end of that hat is up, so that if there is something in the ball cap, there you go, just like that. Can you tell the jury, do you recognize that item right there?
Yes, this item is what we just observed in multiple photographs, the hat, the Jets hat, New York Jets hat, my item number 34 that was located in the kitchen.
And is there an envelope inside that item as well?
Yes, there is.
And are there
Good
markings on that
morning,
envelope?
nonstop
Yes.
mom.
Could you do me a favor, just set that envelope to the side? Well, let me ask you this. At some point, did you later learn that when that item was being examined, a possible piece of a projectile fell out of it?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd ask permission for the witness to come off of the stand and to publish this item for the jury.
And, all right, you may do so.
I'm actually going to have you come out here. I'm going to have you stand right here at first, and I'm going to ask you some questions about that hat. When you examined that hat, did you find what you believe to be a bullet hole in the back of it?
Yes.
Okay. Could you do me a favor? You could spread that hat out a little bit. Can you show the jury what you're referring to with respect to a hole of perforation in the back of that hat?
Dried blood on this.
Okay, go ahead and say that a little louder.
There's dried blood on this, and I'm just being very cautious about unfolding it. I don't want it to become everything.
Okay.
That shows from the inside.
Are you able to see the hole that you believe to be a bullet hole?
Yes.
Okay. And if you could, show the jury, just walk it in front of them, I guess, and show them where that hole of perforation is.
Hey, Super Mama D, good to see you. Welcome back. I think that the state is doing an excellent job at breaking this all down for the jury. I mean,
Let me see that.
I can't get past
Open it
like
up a
how
second.
thorough of a job they're
From
doing.
the outside, if you could, walk the jury through and just put your finger on, showing them the outside where it is. As you examine that hole or perforation from the outside, did you notice any blowout or any fraying of that hole on the back there that indicated that it was an exit wound as opposed to an entrance hole?
It appeared to be an exit. That what I initially thought it could be.
Okay. At some point after further examination, were you able to look at that hat and possibly track where that bullet had actually come out at the front of the hat?
I knew that it was damage here to build the hat, but at that particular time, I did not know if it was an entrance or an exit in the rear.
Okay. At some point, if you could, show the jury what they're looking at with respect to the front or the bill of that hat. And if you could, you pull that away a little bit to demonstrate the damage? And again, does it appear that that area of that hat has been pulled
Yes,
or torn or ripped?
exactly. True
away from
sideboard.
the hat,
Exactly.
the
Oh,
bill
I'm calling
area
you
there.
that. Dr.
sir,
B.
Okay.
Exactly. It is a very
And with
complex
respect
case.
to
And you know that the defense
this
is going to
front
do
area
what
of
they
the bill
do,
here,
which,
again, does
I mean,
there
it's their
appear to
job.
be
They're going to put the
damage
state
or
on
disruption in
trial
the way
for
that bill
how
should
they
look?
collected
Yes.
the evidence, and it's
At
important
some point, again, you learned, or did you
that
learn that
they see
a
that this
projectile
is
or what appeared to be a projectile had been located in that
this
fill
was
area?
done thoroughly.
Okay. You can go ahead and put that back in there. See that? Actually, let me see that envelope.
There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of different people. You know, it's a tough case.
State Exhibit A519. Again, did you collect, maintain, and store this item in accordance with your standard operating procedures?
Yes, I did.
You testified that you did recognize markings that indicated that it had been in the lab. Is that correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I believe the parties have a stipulation.
All right, I'm going to express that then.
The stipulation would read that Exhibit A519, which is item number 34, collected from 4077 Union Hill Road, and recovered from the kitchen floor of that address, was sent to the lab for DNA testing. The stain on the hat and the interior hair headband were swabbed for DNA. Gary Roden's DNA was found in the swabbing of this item.
Mr. Parker?
That's right.
The jury is instructed to find that that stipulation is, you're instructed to find that that has been established as fact and as if it had been established through evidence.
And I don't think we did this, but can you show the jury where that headband, or not where the headband, where that hat was found in the kitchen on the diagram?
Yes, right.
Okay, thank you. In addition to this hat, did you also find several cell phones in that kitchen area?
Yes, sir, we did.
Can you give me State's Exhibit A429? I'm showing you what's been marked for identification purposes, or we're putting up on the screen what's been marked as State's Exhibit A429. Again, do you have that picture in front of you?
Yes, I do.
That truly and accurately depict the way that area looked the day that you did your work out there?
Yes, it does.
And can you tell the jury what they're looking at with respect to the evidence in that picture and those placards?
Yes, this is a photograph on the diagram. Would have been somewhat in that area on the far side of the table. And there are multiple cellular telephones there. Some appeared to be in old condition. However, we did collect those.
Can you give me State's Exhibit A430? Can you tell the jury what they're looking at with respect to State's Exhibit A430?
Yes, A430 is just a close-up photograph of one of the cellular telephones found in that area.
And obviously, did you mark that with its unique BCI item number and photo placard number?
Yes, item number 43 was used to mark that cellular telephone.
I'm handing you what's been marked for identification purposes, State's Exhibit A528. Can you take a look at that package? Do you recognize the markings on that package?
Yes, this is my original packaging, my original label, number 43. Once again, my initials are on the back.
Okay. Can you do me a favor? Can you open that up and remove the item that's inside of it, please?
There are multiple items in there as
Okay.
it's been disassembled.
Okay, yeah, be careful with it, please. Can you tell the jury what they're looking at there in that exhibit?
Yes, in this particular exhibit, it's item number 43, but it appears that it's been taken apart and some analysis, internal analysis may have been conducted.
We talked about different sections that you have over there at BCI. We talked about the lab, and we talked about crime scene, and we talked about investigations. Do you also have a computer crime section?
Yes, a cyber crimes unit that
Okay.
would work on things of this nature.
Okay. And do they have forensic computer examiners who are able to basically look at phones and try to get information from phones or computers that you take into evidence?
Yes, we do.
And sometimes does that require taking a phone apart to get inside and look for chips?
Yes, it does.
And the condition with respect to that exhibit that you have in your hand, when you collected that phone, was it in one piece?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And does that appear, the fact that it's in multiple pieces now, does that appear to be something that was done as other work in this case?
Yes, I believe this would have been done by our people, right down to the small screws were saved, that were removed when the phone was taken apart.
Okay. So you can put that back in the. With respect to State's Exhibit A528, again, was that collected, maintained, and stored, and eventually tested in accordance with BCI's or your standards?
Yes.
Mr. Junk, can you give me State's Exhibit A431? State's Exhibit A431 that's up on the screen. Can you tell the jury what they're looking at there?
Yes, A431 is another photograph. Basically the same area, just a different cellular telephone. And you can see I've given it a separate item number 44.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification purposes, State's Exhibit A529. And I'm going to direct your attention to the back, to the writings on the back of that. Again, you said you gave that a unique crime scene identifier. It's crime scene number 44. Do you recognize that marking or markings identifying that as crime scene 44 on the back of that package?
Yes, I do.
And again, sometimes is that evidence sent off to other labs to do chip offs or other extra work that your lab can't do?
Yes, sir.
Could you do me a favor? Could you open that item for us?
This case is incredibly intense. And
If you could walk us through what was in the inside of that package?
yes, Mo, it is.
The envelope that
Worst-
we looked at earlier that said crime scene number
Let
44
me turn this
is
down.
actually
We're still on
Right.
Chris Roden
this is my
Senior's
original packaging. As you
home.
can see, it says evidence.
This is
number
stuff they
44.
found in his
It's my
home.
original label. It does have my initials.
Can you open that package and tell the jury what's inside?
Another small container, and once again, disassembled cellular telephone and battery.
Do you recognize that item as the item that you collected as part of your work at 4077 Union Hill Road?
You're welcome, babe. You're welcome.
Yes.
You can go ahead and put all that back in. And again, the fact that it's in multiple pieces, and the fact that there's different writing on there, and the fact that it's in a different package, does that indicate that it went to your computer crime section and they did some forensic analysis of this phone?
Yes, I believe it does.
Can you give me what's been marked for identification purposes, State's Exhibit A432? State's Exhibit A432, can you tell the jury what they're looking at there?
Yes, A432, once again, it's a photograph of a cellular telephone. This is my item number 45, and if you recall, once again, it's still in the same general area in this corner. It's
My
where it
handy
was
what's been marked?
located. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's where that item was located.
I'm going to show you what's been marked for identification purposes, State's Exhibit A530. If you could, take a look at State's Exhibit A530 for us. Recognize the markings on that package?
Yes, A530 is my item number 45. You can see my original label. my initials on the back of the package.
Can you open that package and tell us what's inside?
Well, Jer was telling us, Super Mama D, that that George is wearing a shock vest, and it's exactly like it sounds. If you act a fool, you get shocked.
It's the contents of the bag listed as item number 45 is my item number 45 that I collected.
Which would make sense.
Is that item in
either one of
multiple
them would
pieces as
make
well?
sense.
Yes, it is.
Okay, and again, when you collected it from the scene out there at 4077, was it in one piece?
Yes, I made no alterations to anything of this nature when I collected it.
The fact that it's in multiple pieces, does it reflect that piece of evidence also may have gone to the lab for further analysis?
Yes, it could.
Can you put that back inside for us? Mr. Junk, can you give us State's Exhibit A 433, please? State's Exhibit A 433 that we have up on the screen. Can you tell the jury what that is?
Yes, A433 is my item number 46. And once again, it's another cellular telephone found in that same general location.
I'm going to give you.
I don't know if
what's
it's
been
a
marked for
joke or not, to
identification
be
purposes,
honest
State's
with you.
Exhibit A 531.
To me, it looks like he's
State's
got
Exhibit
something
A
up under that
531.
vest, so I don't know what it is.
The markings on that package.
Yes, I do.
But then when I
This package is
further
my
read it,
original
didn't sound so
packaging.
much
It
like it
appears
was
it has
at
my
first,
initials.
I could
As my original evidence
thought
label
maybe,
of
but
number
then
46
reading
and
further
my
and
description being a
reading
black
the other
AT&T
comment didn't sound so
cellular
much
telephone.
like a joke.
Can you
But what
also
do I
open that
know?
package and tell us what's inside?
I kind of would too, nonstop, Mom. Come on, George, do something. I've
This
never
appears to
seen
be
anybody be
the
able to sit with
same
that kind of
cellular
a
telephone that you see
blank expression
in
for as long as he has been able
A433,
to.
my item number 46.
Okay.
I mean,
And
he
again,
shows no emotion
In that bag there,
ever.
is it in
I'm
the same
actually
condition it was when you collected it?
No, it's not.
like
The
low key
fact
kind
that
of
it's in
frightened, but
multiple,
also kind of
pieces there,
impressed.
again,
It's
to
weird.
you, does that indicate that it went to the lab for further examination?
Not
Yes.
exactly sure how to feel,
Can you put that?
honestly. It's unsettling, but yet at the same time, to be able to do that is I don't know, it's just it's unsettlingly impressive, I suppose is the word I want to use. Is the only way I can, like,
I'm gonna hand you another
I've
stack
just
of
never
pictures
seen
here.
anything like it.
Now, you testified already about evidence that you collected and documented in the living room, evidence that you collected and documented in the kitchen of 4077 Union Hill
I mean, he
Road.
hardly even moves his
At
head
some point,
either.
did
That's
you
the other
continue to
thing.
move through that residence back towards the back bedroom where the bodies were?
Yes, sir, I did.
Walk us through generally what you did and what you were observing as you moved back towards that back bedroom.
As I was proceeding toward the back bedroom area, you should note that I had only been back there one time prior to this. There were not multiple trips made to that area. Not out of disrespect for the victims. I just had so much evidence between myself and the victim that I felt I should take the evidence as I came in order not to disrupt anything between myself and the victim. And so as I worked my way back, I followed what appeared to be transfer stains of blood in the form of what I thought were drag marks that originated in the living room area and ultimately ended in the bedroom area.
And Mr. Junk, can you give us State's Exhibit A440, please? We have State's Exhibit A440 on the screen. Can you tell the jury what State's Exhibit A440 depicts? And if you could, maybe use that pointer and show us where that picture's taken from.
This photograph, A440.
I don't know
would be
exactly where the
in
law
this
would fall on
general
that because we're
location,
allowed, they
looking
are, I
back
mean,
that
tasers are
direction.
legal.
I believe you see a gun safe here, and it's referenced in the photograph A440.
Can you give us State's Exhibit
I don't know.
A441, please?
So I'll look into that and have,
Okay, again, tell us what we're
have
looking
an
at
answer
there.
by tonight. How about that?
A441, once again, I'm moving back toward that bedroom, ultimately where our victims would be located. I've taken maybe one, possibly two more steps, and then taken an additional photograph as I move toward that direction.
Mr. John, can you back that up? I missed that last exhibit. Okay, I backed up again to State's Exhibit A440 for the jury. Back in 2016, were you roughly the same size, height, weight that you are now?
A little bigger, sir.
Were you?
Yes, sir, I was.
Have you lost some weight since then?
Yes, sir, I
Oh,
have.
I didn't know that
Any
nonstop,
idea-
Mama. That's interesting.
How much you weighed back then?
Yes, sir, I weigh 250 pounds then.
Okay.
Oh.
As you walked towards that back bedroom there, did you have to move any of that stuff to the left? Did you have any trouble getting through that back hallway?
No, my process, as we know, is not to alter anything prior to its time. And at this point, I had not altered or moved anything. I'll just simply set a course for the rear bedroom and work my way that way as I photographed.
Did you have to crawl, climb, or in any other way alter your path back there?
No,
Can you give me State's Exhibit A443, please? Okay, could you tell us what we're looking there with respect to State's Exhibit A?
I wonder how we could find the answer to
yes, in
this.
Exhibit A443, if you look directly to the left, you will see a black surface, and we can reference that from the last photograph as being the large safe. At the base of that, we will see two victims, one being Christopher Roden and the other Gary Roden.
Walk us through when you document a room where a body is found. How do you go about documenting that room, and how do you go about documenting the bodies, and what's the purpose of everything that you do in that documentation?
That can vary from scene to scene. Sometimes you have to stop in the general location you are and take a look around, see what your best options are as far as moving around the bodies without altering anything. Ultimately, you're trying to make your best effort not to change anything, but to photograph everything in the way it was when you found it. And ultimately, you are trying not to add anything or take anything away from that particular area or scene at that time.
When you took this picture, had you moved that blanket at all so you get a better look at the bodies, or is this picture of that room as you found it?
This is the way I found it.
I'm glad they're not. I
Can you give
mean,
me State's
glad
Exhibit
that the press is
A445?
being good about not.
Can you tell us what we're
showing
looking at
anything they're
there
not
with
supposed to
respect to
show,
State's
you know what I
Exhibit A445?
Yes, a few exhibits back, we looked at the photograph and discussed that our victims were there. I've now moved my camera up, taking a photograph of that room from a different angle. I didn't want to stay locked in on my victims. I wanted to continue to process the area around my victims and document that as I went.
Okay. You talked about the big safe that you observed in the room.
Yes.
I'm going to point to the picture here, and then I'm going to point up above. In this area where there's a fan in blue tote and some totes in a laundry basket, do you remember seeing or collecting a smaller safe at all from that area?
I recall seeing it, but I don't think I collected that one.
There's been a lot of talk about this
At some
safe,
point
this
after you
smaller
document the
safe.
general layout of the room, do you focus your documentation on the bodies?
Yes, I do.
Can you give me State's Exhibit A446? Can you tell us what's depicted in this picture and what you're trying to show?
Trying to show the original position of the hands of the victim. The fact, actually, the positioning of the clothing, things of that nature can tell you or enlighten you as to what may have occurred prior to your arrival. Showing the fact there's a blanket over the victim and the general location of that victim.
At some point, as part of your documentation of a victim's body, do you zoom in and take pictures of their hands?
Yes, I do.
And I'm going to give you State's Exhibit A449. Can you tell us what's depicted in A449?
Yes, this is a close-up photograph of the victim's hands. Trying to document once again the condition of the hands, whether there could be evidence on the hands, whether there could be any trauma to the hands.
And State's Exhibit A450.
Yes. A450 once again is a photograph of our victim's hand, showing obviously blood and the condition of the clothing as well.
Okay, and when we're talking victim, is this the first victim, Chris Roden?
Yes, it is.
Can you give me State's Exhibit A451? Can you tell us what we're looking at with respect to State's Exhibit A451?
Exhibit A451 is a close-up of our victim's leg. If you look closely, you can see our second victim, Gary Roden. You can see his hand and the position of his hand in relation to our victim's leg.
All right, I'm gonna hop in here real quick. Let me see that picture. All right,
Poor
I'm gonna point-
family sitting up in the front row, front two rows there.
to
It's
that right there.
awful.
Does that appear to be a nipple?
Pardon me?
Right here.
Yes.
And an armpit?
Okay. Yeah.
Take a look at that again. I'll leave back in. Let's go back to looking at 451. Just keep 451 up there and then we'll put, let's see.
Yes.
Apparently, the
We'll put
gentleman from
446 up on
BCI
the
wasn't
screen. You hold
prepared to be
451.
asked that question.
Yes.
He wasn't ready.
446.
Yep. Okay. Walk us back through with respect to 451 in comparison to 446. What are we looking at there at 451, which is not on the screen, but what you were just looking at?
Actually, in A451, if I turn the photograph up the correct way and look at it, it's obvious, but looking at it in association with the way this label was on it, appeared to alter that.
Okay. And let's go back to 451, Mr. Jones.
Yes.
All right. In addition to this area of the victim's body, is there an item on the floor there that you documented?
Yes, a small flashlight.
Okay. Can you give me State's Exhibit A452?
Kind of appears like
Can you tell us what
He's
we're looking
looking
at
down and
there
not
with
really
respect to
looking
State's
at
Exhibit A452?
the witness, nor
Yes,
is
in
he really looking at
A452,
what's being
you're looking
displayed.
at once again, it's basically the same photographs we've been looking at with the upper torso of Christopher Roden and the hand of Gary Roden with a flashlight and some bloodstains on the floor.
And do you know, was that flashlight collected later as part of the broader investigation in this case?
Yes, it was. We knew that we were going to come back to this scene, and we knew that there would be additional work to be done, and that was collected at a later time.
Your Honor, I believe we have a stipulation.
I'm sorry.
I believe we have a stipulation, another stipulation. Mr. Parker, I believe on my list, I'm going to jump to stipulation number 17. Your Honor, for the record, at this time, the parties agree with respect to the flashlight that is annotated in that picture, which will eventually be marked as BCI item number 88. It has a lab number of 54, 54A, and 54B. That flashlight recovered in the north bedroom of 4077 Union Hill Road was sent to the lab for testing. That flashlight tested presumptively positive for the presence of blood. DNA testing on the unstained area of that flashlight, which was marked for lab purposes as 54A, showed a mixture of DNA containing Gary Roden as the major contributor. DNA testing was also done on the batteries and the battery holder, which was marked for the lab purposes as 54B, and that showed a mixture of DNA with Gary Roden being the major contributor. That's correct.
All right. Again, the jury is instructed that the jury is to accept the stipulation to be established as fact as fully as if it had been established through evidence in the courtroom.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I proceed? Mr. Junk, can you give us State's Exhibit A456?
So far, I guess maybe it'll come later because I haven't heard, and maybe
At
you
some
guys
point,
have, and I've
you
just
begin to
missed
move
it.
around and document that second body.
But I
in that
haven't
room.
heard
Yes, I
anything,
did.
any
Can you tell
of
us what we're
the
looking at
DNA
with respect
tests
to
coming
State's
back
Exhibit A456?
to George or anything like that. So I'm very, very
stepped
curious
into
how the state
to the
intends to
bedroom,
put him
And
there.
I'm trying to get
'Cause I just feel
a
very
basic
strongly
idea of the positioning
that
of
I
what
believe
we
he
would
was there.
learn would be
Don't
Gary
get me
Roden's
wrong,
body and
but
relation to, the position of the body
I
of
don't
Christopher Roden.
know how a
In short,
jury
that
is
can
going to
tell you
take
a
it
sequence of events.
because juries feel
Can you give me
different
State's
ways
Exhibit
about people, about,
A54, please?
for example, like Jake and Angela in this case testifying against George because they feel a certain
Excuse me,
type of way about
A454,
people
I
who take
apologize.
plea deals or who get plea deals to take, to testify.
Okay.
And I'm
Can you walk us
curious,
through what are we looking at there with respect to State's Exhibit A454?
if they have something else
A454, I'm now
other
moving
than
closer
this
to the
testimony
corner.
that they're
On the
relying
right
on,
portion,
because
you can
just in
see the
case the
actual
jury
corner of
feels that way, you
bed.
know what I mean?
Directly below that, you can see our second victim.
Although
who was,
in this circumstance, it's a
for
little bit different.
investigative
It's very
purposes, why
different,
we're
not even a
there,
little
we
bit, just
have
because
proceedings will check
they
the
are
victim,
family number,
Gary.
number one.
You can
That's
see
the
his,
biggest thing. They're family.
face,
Usually
large
it's
amounts of blood, and his head
not
in
fam,
relation
it's friends.
to,
You know what I'm
the
saying?
lower leg of Christopher Roden.
So that might
Mr.
make a
Junk, can you go
difference
back one to
to
State's
the
Exhibit
jury. I'm just
A453?
curious because you just never can tell
State's
what a
Exhibit
jury's going to do.
A453. Can you tell the jury what they're looking at there?
Yes, this would be the arm of Gary Roden, and it extends out parallel with the bed, and there's saturation stains or a large amount of blood on the exterior of the jacket.
Can you give me State's Exhibit A461, please? Again, did you continue to work your way around that room and document those bodies in the condition they were when you found them?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us what we're looking at with respect to State's Exhibit A461?
A461, once again, is another photograph. Earlier, actually in the last few photographs, I've been on the other side of our victim, Gary Roden. Now I've stepped over and I'm working on photography from another angle.
Can you give me State's, and again, is this the way you found them? You haven't done anything as far as moving them to get a better angle or anything like that?
No.
Can you give me State's Exhibit A459? Continue walking us through what you're doing there, what you're documenting?
Yeah, State's Exhibit 459, I've taken a step back and we're seeing the almost the entire body there of Gary Roden and lower portion of Christopher Roden's leg, as well as condition and the positioning of the clothing.
Again, with respect to that body, Gary's body, is that the condition you found him in? Arms overhead, sweatshirt basically rolled up.
Yes.
Can you give me State's Exhibit A460, please? And again, what are we looking at there?
A460 is another photograph, a different angle, the body of Gary Roden. And I was noting there that he did have both of his shoes on, as well as the position of the clothing.
Eventually, after you documented how the bodies were as you found them, did you move Chris's body, or was Chris's body moved so that you could better document the injuries to Gary?
Eventually, they were moved. However, there were some other things that we completed prior to moving them.
Okay, and I'm going to come back and talk to that on that later. But what other things did you do? I'll cover that here in a few. But what did you do?
There were some swabs taken from various locations on our victims' bodies. Those swabs, I think we've talked about them, but they were what we would call touch DNA swabs. In other words, if I would touch something, I may leave my DNA behind as sort of a latent fingerprint. And if I were to swab that area, I may find, and I have been successful in finding, a suspect's DNA on a victim's skin before. That's one of the things we tried. I also used forensic vacuum with new sterile 3M filters to take forensic vacuumings of the victims' bodies.
Okay, and all of that was before you actually moved them so that you could better document the injuries.
Yes.
Okay.
I wonder if that's the
Let's
same
talk about
thing
that
as
real quick.
MVAC,
Again, you talked about touch DNA.
what he was
Again,
just
if I
talking
drag
about.
those bodies, if Andy Wilson drags those bodies to the back of that bedroom, and I've got gloves on, am I going to leave touch DNA on those bodies?
Most likely not.
But you do that anyways, just in case. Is that correct?
Yes, at that particular time, you have no idea if a suspect was wearing gloves or not wearing gloves.
After you did that work that you talked about to collect or possibly collect other types of evidence, again, eventually did you move the body so you could better document the actual injuries to them?
Yes.
Let's start with Gary's body. I'm going to give you a State's Exhibit A483. And again, these definitely are pictures. Can you tell us what you're trying to depict in State's Exhibit A483?
State's Exhibit A483 is just a general overall view of the head area of Gary Roden.
Oh,
In
bless
that
his
photograph, you
family's
can
heart.
see a lot of blood around the mouth, the nose, discoloration around the eyes, and then what I thought appeared to be a bullet hole near the ear.
And did you continue to document or get closer pictures of what you believed to be a bullet hole?
Yes, sir, I did.
I'm going to show you what's been marked for identification purposes, State's Exhibit A484. Can you tell the jury what you're trying to depict there?
A484, once again, is a close-up of what appears to be a bullet hole in Gary Roden's head.
What is the purpose of taking those pictures with respect to that body at the scene?
I want to document this as much as possible. I can't control what anybody else does after these bodies are taken out of my care or after I'm going. So I want to document them as they were, as I found them.
And ultimately, with respect to the number of bullet holes or the number of times that a victim is shot, is that the coroner's responsibility to ultimately determine that?
Yes, if it's not if it's not a visually presents itself or the wound, or I can't visually see it without making alterations, I will photograph it. If it's something that I would have to alter the clothing or something of that nature, we don't alter those clothings anymore. We don't search for additional bullet holes because the clothing in its original condition could also help during autopsy.
Okay. Again, ultimately, the number of times somebody shot or the trajectory of bullets in the body, that's not your call, is it?
Absolutely not.
Now, you talked about taking swabs before you move the bodies. You talked about taking swabs of the victim's hands. And again, is that for the purpose of touch DNA?
Yes, it is.
Did you do that on both of these victims?
Yes, I did.
I'm going to show you what's been marked for identification purposes. It states Exhibit A 481.
I'll be right
Please
back,
exhibit
you guys. I got to
A481.
switch
Can you
out
tell the jury
laundry,
what
but
that
I'll be
is?
in the chat.
Yes, A481 is a photograph, and even though you can't see what I was swabbing, I still wanted something to reference to later. So the swabs I took of the victim's hand, most times we take one swab as opposed to blood, we take two. There's a reason for taking one because you can concentrate more DNA on that one swab. And I numbered that as item 57. At the time, whether or not I took one or two, I don't recall.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification purposes. States Exhibit A 542. Can you look at States Exhibit A 542 and do you recognize the markings on that package?
Yes, this is my evidence label listed as number 57. It's my original packaging with my initials.
Okay, can you tell the jury what it is?
Yes, it's a swab from the right hand of Gary Roden.
And again, is that the swab that would have been depicted in the picture that's up on the screen for them?
Yes,
Was that lab, or do you recognize whether or not that swab was sent to the lab for further testing?
yes, it appears it was.
Your Honor, at this time, we'd have another stipulation.
All right, can you state that for us then?
Yes, Your Honor. Johnson, be number 13. The party would stipulate and agree that the swab of Gary Roden's right hand and photo ID number 57, which has lab number 45, and I believe it states exhibit number A542, was tested for DNA. And the result was that it was a mixture of DNA, with Gary Roden being the major contributor. Chris Roden Sr.'s DNA was excluded from the swab.
Mr. Parker?
That's correct.
And the jury is instructed that the jury is to accept the stipulation to be established as fact, as fully as if it had been established through evidence here in the courtroom.
Did you also swab Gary's left hand?
Yes, I did.
Can I get State's Exhibit A482? My handy what's been marked for identification purposes, State's Exhibit A543. State's Exhibit A482. Can you tell the jury what that is?
Yes, State's Exhibit A482 is a photograph of that hand, the left hand. Again, I've given it an item number, my item number 58, so that I could reference that particular swab at a later time.
And then State's Exhibit A543 that I handed you, do you recognize the markings on that package?
Yes, A543 corresponds with item number 58 in the photograph, and it is my swab. This is my packaging, my original label, and my initials.
Okay. And again, was that swab also sent to the lab for DNA testing?
Yes, it was.
Now we have another stipulation. Mr. Parker, this will be number 14. Parties agree and stipulate that the swab of Gary Roden's left hand, which is State's Exhibit A543, depicted by BCI item number 58 and lab number 46, was tested for DNA. It was found to contain a mixture of DNA with Gary Roden being the major contributor to that DNA mix. Chris Roden Sr. was excluded. His DNA was excluded from that swab.
Mr. Parker?
That's correct.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, the jury is instructed to accept the stipulation to be established as fact as fully as if it had been established through evidence in court.
Okay, and we've talked about your documentation of Gary's body. Did you also document Chris's body as it was in the room?
Yes, sir. I used the same procedure to document that body.
Can you give us State's Exhibit IA 457? And again, we've seen that picture, but can you tell the jury what's depicted there?
Yes, this is actually the one I misidentified earlier. This is A457. It's a photograph. Once again, to orient ourselves, you can see the flashlight, the victim, Christopher Roden's upper torso, and the torso and face of Gary Roden.
Can you give us State's Exhibit A458?
A458 is another photograph, again, documenting the,
Give me 1 second. Is that 458 as well? Oh, is it? Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
A458 is another photograph of the upper torso of Christopher Roden. And notably, obviously, there's an accumulation of blood there on the chest area, but the positioning of the clothing there I felt was important.
Okay, and again, when you looked at his body position, did you find his arms also to be up over his head and his sweatshirt or his shirt type clothing rolled back over his head?
Yes.
And again, both of those victims with their arms over their head and their sweatshirts rolled up. Based on your knowledge, your training experience, did you find that to be consistent with being drugged by their feet?
That's what I felt at the time, yes.
Down, as you went further down Chris's body, at some point did you find his wallet between his legs?
Yes.
Can you give me State's Exhibit A455? Okay.
I knew
Can you
what
tell
you
the
meant,
jury
Amelia.
what's depicted
I'm
in State's
thankful
Exhibit
that y'all are here,
A455?
honestly.
A455, actually, this particular photograph, I was looking at the lower portion of the jeans and how it appeared that they had been kind of squeezed together a little bit. And this would be the lower legs of Christopher.
All right, I'm going to bring you out with your pointer, if you would. Could you step out? Yana, can he step down?
Yeah.
Pull your pointer out. And when you talk about it appeared that the jeans had been squeezed, what area are you talking about?
That area,
Okay.
and the same would be consistent on that side.
And again, based on your knowledge, your training, your experience, is that consistent with somebody being drugged by their legs?
Based on the fact, positioning of the clothing, the arms over the head, and then those markings on the jeans, that I felt that that's what had occurred.
Also of note in that picture, did you notice that this victim had footwear on?
Yes, both shoes.
Okay. And did you notice whether or not those shoes were tied?
Yes.
And were they?
Yes.
Okay. Can you give me State's Exhibit A462? Is that okay? Can you tell us what we're looking at there in State's Exhibit A462?
In A462, this is another photograph of the lower torso of Christopher. Again, you can see the jeans, how they're bunched up in that area. And if I can stand and point something out.
Absolutely.
Right in this area, it's very hard to see, but a wallet was laying out in that.
If you stay right there, I'm going to give you 463. Can you give me State's Exhibit A463?
Exhibit 463, once again, it's very hard to see with the lighting, but you can see the wallet. It's in an open position and appears to be some items there on the wallet.
Can you give me State's Exhibit A476? Okay. At some point, were you able to reach in between legs? Well, let's talk about that wallet for a second. Was that wallet in a pocket or was it loose between the victim's legs?
It was laying just as you saw in the last photograph, loose. It was not in a pocket, and I did not make any alterations to it until I got to a point where obviously I had to collect and document it.
At some point, did you mark that item and collect it as evidence?
Yes.
And walk us through how you did that.
Once again, through the whole process, and we've talked about it, we are dressed in Tyvek, our footwear is Tyvek, our gloves are changed regularly. That would be something that we would pull out, we would remove. And ultimately, I didn't do a lot with that as far as getting into the wallet. I tried to keep that minimal because I was concerned that there could be touch DNA on the exterior of that wallet, and I didn't want to destroy that.
Okay. You can go ahead and grab a seat. I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification purposes, State's Exhibit A439. Can you take a look at State's Exhibit A439? Can you tell us what that is?
Yes, A439. This is my packaging. Once again, that's my label. And on the rear is my initials.
Can you open that?
Yes. I've listed this as item number 54, and that would have been the wallet we saw in the photograph.
Okay, can you tell the jury what's inside that?
Yes, this is
Today, I'm
item number
probably only
54.
going to stream this
It's
morning
the,
for
same,
probably like another
wallet,
30 minutes. About 11 o'clock, I
belonged
got to
to one
jet
of the victims.
because I got
Was there
something to
actually an
do.
ID card in
But
it?
Yes,
I'll
there
be back
was.
tonight and we'll recap all of this.
Witness, just to step outside the witness box and publish that.
You may do that.
You good?
Objections?
No, okay.
All right.
Okay. Could you show the jury the item and then pull out the ID card that's in it, please?
There's actually the wallet, some of the photographs. There's the ID card.
Whose ID card is it?
That would have been Christopher.
Excuse me.
You can put that back in that bag for us. Would you also take swabs of Chris Roden's hands the same way you did of Gary's?
Yes, I did.
Can you give me State's Exhibit A479? Can you tell us what's depicted there in State's Exhibit A479?
Yes, A479 would be my item number 55. And that would be one of our victims' hands. From that, I would have collected swabs, as we discussed earlier, for the potential of touch DNA.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification purposes, State's Exhibit A540. State's Exhibit A540. Can you tell the jury what that is?
Yes, A540 is my evidence number 55. That was represented in the photograph by the placard. It has my evidence label, as my initials on the seal, and it my documentation of a swab. From
You're
the right
welcome,
hand of
Amelia. I
Christopher.
try to give you guys a heads up
Be
as
right.
much as I can.
And again, are there markings on that package to indicate that that item also went to the lab?
Yes,
And with respect to all of these swabs that we've talked about, were they collected, maintained, and stored in accordance with your standard operating procedure?
absolutely, yes.
Your Honor, we have another stipulation.
State, please.
Mr. Parker, this will be number 15. All right, the parties stipulate and agree that State's Exhibit A540, which is the swab from Christopher Roden Sr.'s right hand, as depicted in BCI item number 55, photo placard 55, which is actually lab number 44, was tested for DNA. The results showed a mixture of DNA with Chris Sr. being the major contributor in, I'm reading the wrong one. I'm reading 16. Let me back that up. Let me start over. All right, State's Exhibit A540. State's Exhibit A540 is a swab from Christopher Sr.'s right hand,
Aw, thank you,
which
Amelia.
is depicted in
You guys are the
BCI
best.
item number 55, lab number 43. That item was tested for DNA. The results of the DNA in that swab showed a mixture of DNA with Christopher Roden Sr. being the major contributor and Gary Roden being a minor contributor. Did you also take swabs of Christopher Roden Sr.'s left hand?
Yeah, we would stipulate.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, so with respect to the stipulation just stated, the jury is instructed that the jury is to accept the stipulation to be established as fact, as fully as if it had been established through evidence here in the courtroom.
Thank you, Aaron. All right, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Did you also take swabs of Christopher Roden Sr.'s left hand?
Yes, I did.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification purposes. State's Exhibit A541. And I'm going to ask Mr. Junk to put State's Exhibit
Uh-oh, the bailiff's on the move, y'all. What's he doing?
A480 on the screen. State's Exhibit A541. You recognize that item?
Yes, I do. This is, once again, it's my package with my original evidence label, has my initials from when I sealed it up, and it has my description of evidence number 56, swab from the left hand of Christopher, which would be Christopher Roden.
And can you tell us what's depicted in State's Exhibit A480?
That photograph A480, once again, is of the hand, and I have given it item number 56 to represent the swab I have before me.
State's Exhibit A541, was that collected, maintained, and stored in accordance with your standard operating procedure?
Yes, it was.
And are there markings on that item that indicate that it was also sent to the lab for DNA testing?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, we have another stipulation. Mr. Parker, this will be number 16. The parties agree and stipulate that State's Exhibit A541 is a swab from Christopher Roden Sr.'s left hand as depicted in BCI item number 56, lab number 44. That swab was tested for DNA. The results showed a mixture of DNA with Christopher Roden Sr. being the major contributor and Gary Roden being a minor contributor.
That's correct.
The jury is instructed that the jury is to accept that stipulation to be established as.
I mean,
fact,
I'm not actually all
fully
that
as if it had
surprised
been
just
established,
because the
through
level
evidence here in the court.
and the lengths that the Wagner
Now,
family
you also
went
talked about,
through
before you
to
move those two
not
bodies,
get
you did
caught.
a forensic vacuum of them. Tell the jury what a forensic vacuum is and how a forensic vacuum works.
Yes, tell us.
It's
This I want to
relatively
hear.
simple. We have a small vacuum that are designated for that purpose and that purpose only. Would be to look for trace evidence such as hairs, fibers, anything residual that might have been left behind. And in the use of it, that forensic vac, we have filters, and those filters, when we receive them, they are packaged in an individual sealed package, and they are 3M filters. We would take that filter out of that package, hook it to our forensic vac, and from there, we would take a vacuuming of that body or area or furniture, whatever we're trying to find trace evidence from. And once that particular area is vacuumed, we then remove that filter and we actually put it back in its original bag that it came in because it was sterile. From there, we would seal that bag, and then I normally would put that bag in another bag and put my label and my signature on it.
I know I've asked you this question before, but if I'm wearing a mask, a hood, and gloves, is that going to impede my DNA from going somewhere where you're going to vacuum it up with your forensic vacuum?
Yes, it can.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit A
Me.
533. Do you
Nonstop.
do you recognize the markings on that document?
Yes, evidence number 48 is what I've listed it on the package. This is my original package. It's my original label, has my initials. And I've documented it obviously as a 13M filter containing vacuumings from the victim's outer clothing and exposed skin. From
Okay,
the
so I know
victim
what
with
this
the black
vacuuming thing
sweatshirt.
is.
At that time, we wasn't sure of the identity.
It's not what I
And
thought.
so I wanted to make sure
Now I get
I
it. It's just a
documented
regular one.
where it came from as being the black sweatshirt.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification purposes. State's Exhibit A 534. Do you recognize the markings on that package?
Yes, A534. Once again, this is my original packaging. It's my label, my initials. And I labeled it as and designated evidence item number 49. And at that point, I listed it as 13M filter containing vacuumings from the victim's outer clothing and exposed skin. Victim with the shirt over the face, and obviously the filter number. Each filter has its own number.
Both of those forensic vacuums, were they done, collected, maintained, and stored in accordance with your standard operating procedures?
Yes, they were.
In addition to the forensic vacuum, did you collect blind DNA swabs from throughout this entire residence?
Yes, I did. I and Special Agent Price did.
Okay. I put up for the jury what's been marked for identification purposes, State's Exhibit A 545. Can you tell the jury what they're looking at there?
Once again, A545 is a representative, not the scale sketch of the residence at 4077 Union Hill Road.
Okay, and with respect to the type of evidence that's depicted in this diagram, what type of evidence is depicted?
We have samples of suspected blood or biological evidence, and then we would also have blind swabs, mainly looking for touch DNA, residual DNA that was left.
Mr. John, can you give me State's Exhibit A5471? Let's start. Since we're in the bedroom, let's start in the bedroom. 471, I'm sorry. A471. Did you collect some blind swabs from that bedroom area?
Yes, they were collected.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit A535. You have State's Exhibit A471 on the screen in front of you. First of all, what's depicted in State's Exhibit A471?
This would be actually the doorknob of the bedroom where both victims were located, and it's representing blind swabs.
And did you take a blind swab of that doorknob?
Yes.
And can you tell us what State's Exhibit A535 is?
A535, I believe that it is evidence number 50, which is represented in A471 as being a blind swab from that doorknob. Again, it's my packaging, and I listed it as a blind swab from the exterior door handle.
Do you see markings on that item to indicate that it went to the lab?
Yes, I do.
Your Honor, at this time, we'd have another stipulation. Mr. Parker, it's going to be stipulation number 18. The parties agree and stipulate that State's Exhibit A535 is the blind swab from 4077 Union Hill Road, identified as item number 50. It's actually lab number 58. That swab was sent to the lab for DNA testing. The DNA on that swab was a mixture of Chris Roden Sr. and Gary Roden.
That's correct.
All right, again, the jury is to accept the stipulation just given to be established as fact as fully as if it had been established as fact through evidence here in the court.
Mr. John, can you give me State's Exhibit A472? State's Exhibit A472, can you tell the jury what that is?
Yes, A472 is a photograph. It's entering into that bedroom where our victims were located. You can see the blanket there, and we could reference that to other photographs so you can orient yourself as to where you were. I listed that particular item as item number 51, which would represent swab from that doorknob.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit A536. State's Exhibit A536, can you tell the jury what State's Exhibit A536 is?
Yes, A536 is evidence number 51. It's the actual swab that would be correspond to the photograph A472. It's a swab, a blind swab collected from the door handle of that bedroom.
And did you collect, maintain, and store that swab in accordance with your standard operating procedures?
Yes, I did.
And are there markings on that document or on that swab packaging that indicate that it went to the lab?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the parties would have another stipulation.
All right, please state that.
Okay. Mr. Parker, this will be stipulation 19. The parties agree and stipulate that State's Exhibit A536 is the blind swab from 4077 Union Hill Road, identified as BCI item number 51, lab number 59, and this swab was sent to the lab for DNA testing. There was insufficient DNA in this swab for comparison purposes.
That's correct, Joe.
All right, the jury is instructed to accept the stipulation just given to be established as fact as fully as if it had been established as fact through evidence here in the court.
Mr. Junk, can you give me State's Exhibit A473? All right, State's Exhibit A473. Can you tell the jury what's depicted in that exhibit?
Yes, A473, simply a photograph of a light switch, the exterior light switch cover, and swabs would have been taken from that, touch DNA swabs or blind swabs, and designated as being item number 52.
Okay. And with respect to that item number 52, would the location of that swab or where that light switch is be depicted in your overhead diagram there?
Yes, it is.
Okay, where is it?
Right in that area, just inside the door where the victims were located.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit A537. State's Exhibit A537. Can you tell the jury what that is?
Yes, A537 is my item number 52. We just saw the number 52 in the photograph, which represented this swab. And this is listed as a blind swab from the light switch in that particular bedroom.
Again, was that swab collected, maintained, and stored in accordance with your standard operating procedure?
Yes, sir.
Are there markings on that swab that indicate that it went to the lab?
Yes.
Your Honor, we'd have another stipulation.
Please state it.
Mr. Parker, this will be stipulation number 20. The parties agree and stipulate that State's Exhibit A 537 is the blind swab from 4077 Union Hill Road, identified as BCI item number 52. It's actually the lab number 60, and that item was sent to the lab for DNA testing. That swab contained the DNA of Chris Roden Sr. as the major contributor.
That's correct.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you are instructed that the jury is to accept the stipulation to be established as fact as fully as if it had been established through evidence given here in the courtroom.
Mr. Junk, can I get picture or State's Exhibit A 474? Agent Hanshaw, can you tell the jury what's depicted in State's Exhibit A 474?
Yes, A474 is a close-up of the, actually, the target would be the handle of the safe. Earlier, we saw a large safe at the entrance to the bedroom containing both victims. And I gave it item number 53 to represent those swabs that would be collected.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification purposes, State's Exhibit A 538. Can you tell the jury, do you recognize the markings on State's Exhibit A 538?
Yes, A538 is my original item number 53. It's in as my label. It's my packaging, has my initials, and it has my notes being a blind swab from the safe from that bedroom.
Again, was that item collected, maintained, and stored in accordance with your standard operating procedure?
Yes, it was.
And do you recognize markings on that item that indicate that it also went to the lab?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the parties would have another stipulation.
All right, state it, please.
Mr. Parker, this will be stipulation number 21. The parties agree and stipulate that State's Exhibit A 538 is the blind swab from 4077 Union Hill Road, identified as item number 53. It's actually lab number 61. And that item was sent to the lab for DNA testing. There is insufficient DNA on that swab for comparison purposes.
That's correct.
The jury is instructed to accept the stipulations as given to be established as fact as fully as if it had been established through evidence here in the courtroom.
Agent Hanshaw, did you also take swabs from other areas of that house?
Yes, there were swabs taken from the living room area as well as the other bedrooms.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification purposes. The State's Exhibit A 512. State's Exhibit A 512. Can you tell the jury what that is?
Yes, Exhibit A512 would be listed as my item number 27.
Okay. And on the overhead diagram, can you show the jury where that, well, first of all, tell them what it is.
It's actually, it's packaged in my packaging. It has my original label, my initials, and I have it listed as a blind swab from the entry door, or the actual entry door of the residence.
Okay. Can you tell the jury where on the diagram that blind swab was taken?
Yes, if you go back to where we
I
all
know.
began here, entering
It's
the
a lot.
residence, and you will have the door. There's an interior and an exterior door handle.
Are there markings on that packaging that indicate that it went to the lab?
Yes,
Was that item collected, maintained, and stored in accordance with your standard?
And I
operating
really
procedure?
feel like
Yes,
part
sir.
of the reason
Honor,
they're
at this
having
time
to
we
be
have another
extra with all of this
Stated.
is the fact
Mr. Parker,
that
this will be stipulation number
A,
22.
hold on, let me just turn it
The
down.
parties
so I
agree
don't
and
like- I feel
stipulate
like I'm scribbling
That
all
States
over.
Exhibit A 512.
I feel like
the blind
you know,
swab
a large
from
part of this
4077
has to
Union
do with
Hill
the
Road,
fact that
identified as item number 27.
there were some
which is
issues with
lab number
the sheriff's
16.
department.
This item was sent to the lab for DNA testing, and there was insufficient
And-
DNA in this swab for comparison purposes.
They need to establish that everything was done on the up and up with
Jury is
respect to
instructed
the
that the jury is
collection and
instructed
processing of
stipulation
evidence, which I mean,
established,
they kind of always do
as
this,
fact,
and
as fully
obviously
as
we've
it
seen
has
it a
been
ton of times,
established
but
through
like I
evidence.
think it's might be just a little bit extra in
I'm gonna
this
give you what's been
case.
marked for identification purposes.
because
States
of all
Exhibit
of that.
A 513. States Exhibit A 513. Can you take a look at that? Can you tell us what that is?
Yes, A513 is my evidence, number 28. It's
All right,
an additional
it back up
swab.
so
It
I
would
can
have been
hear.
from the interior portion of the door handle from the same door. I did put it in, obviously, this is my packaging, has my original evidence label and my initials on the back.
Are there markings on that item that indicate that it also went to the lab?
Yes,
Was that swab collected, maintained, and stored in accordance with your standard operating procedure?
yes, sir, it was.
Your Honor, we have another stipulation.
All right, please state.
Mr. Parker, this will be stipulation number 23. The parties agree and stipulate that States Exhibit A 513 is the blind swab from 4077 Union Hill Road, identified as item number 28, which is lab number 17. That item was sent to the lab for DNA testing. The swab contained the DNA of Gary Roden.
That's correct.
The jury is instructed to accept the stipulation to be established as fact as fully as if it had been established through evidence here in the courtroom.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification purposes, States Exhibit A 514. If you take a look at that.
Yes, A514 is my evidence number 29. It's a blind swab from one of the bedroom doors in the residence.
Could you show the jury where in the diagram that is?
This area.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification purposes as States Exhibit A 515. States Exhibit A 515. Can you tell the jury what that is?
Yes, it's my evidence number 30. Once again, it's blind swabs from the light switch on the wall near the entry door. Should have been over in this area. Actually, it is number 30.
Your Honor, this time, the parties would, well, I hand you what's been marked for identification purposes as States Exhibit A 521. You take a look at States Exhibit A 521, tell us what that is.
Yes, A521 is my evidence number 6. Once again, it's in my packaging, my label, my initials, and it is a blind swab from the light switch in a bedroom. And it's represented as item number 36 in this corner.
I hand you what's been marked for identification purposes, States Exhibit A 522. States Exhibit A 522, do you recognize that?
Yes, A522 is my evidence number 37. I have it listed as a blind swab from the light switch in the middle bedroom. It's packaged in my original packaging with my label and my initials, and being item number 37. It's right there near the entrance to that door.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, the parties would have another stipulation.
Please state it.
Mr. Parker, this will be stipulation number 24. The parties agree and stipulate that States Exhibits A 514, A 515.
Yes, I feel for the jury as well.
A521 and A 522.
This is a lot to take in. It's a lot to
blind
remember.
swabs
I
that were
hope they're
not
taking good
submitted
notes.
to the lab for further
And
DNA.
it's, I mean, it's a graphic crime scene. All crime scenes are graphic in a way, but this one, I think,
Again, the
is
jury is instructed to
one of
accept
those.
the
You know, that's
stipulation
like,
that was just given as established as
really
fact as fully as if it
graphic.
had been established through evidence.
Disturbing.
here in the courtroom.
Your Honor, we are probably at a good break point. I'm going to transition to another topic.
We have been at
I'm
it for
probably going to check that out
approximately
later
2 hours,
on.
just so short of that. So we are going to take a
Nonstop
15
Mom.
morning break at this time. While you are on break, do not discuss this case.
All right. So they're going to go on their morning break. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to go on our morning break, and I will be back tonight and we're going to recap all of this. Plus, I really want to read this, the recap from day 2. No, day 3, because I think it's important and it's also very interesting. So I want to read that for you guys tonight. So stay tuned. Make sure you have your notifications set to all. And I will see all of you lovelies back here tonight at, I think I'm going to do it at 8 because I got a lot I want to go over tonight. So sometime between 8 and 8:30 Eastern time. Okay, you guys? All right, I'll talk to y'all later. Have a great rest of your Monday. And I'll talk to y'all tonight. Okay, bye.